You are watching an ORACLOUD Plus Training as a Service video snippet. Snippets are concise, targeted tutorials explaining how to use, configure, integrate, deploy, and support Oracle's Fusion Cloud applications. Snippets are delivered via FAST, the Fusion Application Support Tool. FAST is accessible via the web at www.oracloud.plus. No more watching hours of Learning Path style videos to get to the 5-minute snippet you need. Learn Oracle's Fusion Cloud applications in minutes, not hours. Hello and welcome to the Supplier Management video presentation. This video is intended for beginners looking to learn more about Fusion's supplier profile and contact capabilities. It explains the what, where, when, why, who, and how for Fusion's Procurement Cloud suppliers application, or really what should be called a functional work area. This video snippet, as with all ORACLOUD Plus video snippets, can be found within FAST, our Fusion Application Support Tool. Within FAST, it can be found at the Procurement Cloud Training Group, as well as the Supplier Management Training Center under the Learn menu option. If you want to have access to this or any training center, go ahead and email us at access@oracloud.plus, include your name and contact information in the body of the email, and set the the title to FAST Access Request. Okay, so key topics are as follows. What is a supplier? Supplier types. When are suppliers created? So again, within the FPC or Fusion Procurement Cloud overarching one-slide process flow. How are suppliers created? Who creates those suppliers and how? Why are suppliers created? Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and jump into our presentation. What is a supplier? To that we'll add payee and counterparty. A supplier is a person or business that provides a product or service to another entity. A payee is a person to whom money is paid or is to be paid, especially the person to whom a check is made payable. In any instance where an agreement takes place, one party would be considered the counterparty of that transaction. So obviously that's a little bit more focused on agreements, or really what in Fusion is called contracts. Okay, so supplier types, this is pretty important. These are called supplier or really business relationships. And so there's either spend authorized or prospective. And so spend authorized is the full Monty supplier. They can source, contract, order, and invoice and be paid. Versus where a prospective supplier, sometimes referred to as a bidder, they're just allowed to be involved or invited or participate in sourcing events. And so here is our overarching Fusion Procurement Cloud flow. So within procurement, there's always two services, purchasing and sourcing. So on the top, you can see here our purchasing services where requesters, also called self-service, go find what they need, add it to their cart, submit their cart for approval, auto-generate orders, and receive at desk or dock. Great. Well, what happens if no item is found? Well, they create a non-catalog request. So typically, if you don't have an item, you may not know who the supplier is. Okay, so then you perform one or more of the transactions or steps or functions on the bottom, sourcing services, which is if you're reading right to left. Find or register or create your supplier, create your non-financial or pre-purchase contracts, negotiate, maybe you'll go to contract, enable some content, order, etc. But point is, let's focus on two places. So within purchasing services, you'd think, well, wait a second, if I have an item, I have a supplier. Well, you're allowed to suggest a supplier here as well. Maybe you take an item, try to suggest it for someone else. But most importantly, and 99.999% of the time, you're going to create your suppliers as part of your sourcing process. So somebody goes in, they look for an item, they can't find it. Now they say, I need X, they being the requester. And the procurement team will then figure out who that should be. But the requester certainly could suggest or register on behalf of certain suppliers that he or she would want to work with. Okay, so next up, how are suppliers created? So you see on the left, the manual creation, create supplier, you see in the dialog box there. You can also internally register. That means somebody who's within, or somebody's a licensee of Fusion, not necessarily in procurement, they may create a registration. So you see that sometimes if I saw a state do it or government do that for tax refunds, and I've seen healthcare do it for patient refunds. It being registrations. You could either have the patient register externally, although that would probably not go very well. It's best to have an internal party register on behalf of, or you'll see it written OBO of that external payee, and then you can pay them. You could also import suppliers and perform a file-based data import, which is FBDI. So it's essentially a lot of spreadsheets linked together. All these cloud-based applications have them. It's a way to inject data, and you can do it with suppliers. Okay, so who creates the suppliers and how? So you have suppliers themselves performing external registration, or somebody in the business, a requester, not necessarily procurement or supplier control. They may register on behalf of the supplier. So those are two who's. You have the requesters who could suggest as part of their transaction. And then you actually have the supplier administrator who can enter, and then the supplier manager who's the ultimate approver of either suppliers being entered or prospective suppliers being promoted to spend authorized suppliers. So they would initiate the transaction. And so you see here a variety of different ways that supplier gets created: registration, requisition, or online entry. But that's who creates the suppliers and how. Next up, or lastly, why are suppliers created? Well, largely to facilitate procurement transactions. So, and it could be in Fusion, doesn't have to be Fusion. So you have a purchasing transaction payee. You could have a one-time payee. We talked a little bit about those from different systems. Third-party payees, again, different systems. Sourcing bidders, so they're not even necessarily going to be paid yet. Contractual counterparties, which is similar, can be done a variety of different ways. And it's really, there's a reason why you'd want it, because it minimizes the difficulty in putting single entity or people in. So I'm going to do business with this company, so I have to get one of their people to be in Fusion so that I can create an NDA. It's just easier to add them as suppliers. And then you have supplier profile administrators. These are people on or as part of the supplier to manage their different profiles of their people coming in and out of our Fusion, if you will. And then lastly, self-service catalog admins. So you can have somebody at the supplier who can open up an agreement that you have. So they manage the lines, which become the items, or definitional items is what they're called, which is a really nice feature. If you don't understand or you want to know more, you want to go to the catalog overview explained in there. Okay, so that's why our suppliers created. Okay, so are you ready for the next video? Well, do you understand what suppliers are, when they're created, who creates them, how they're created, and why? If the answer is no, then either watch again or feel free to reach out to me directly. You can see here on the left, that's my email address, and I'm always available to answer questions. If the answer is yes, great, then maybe you want to watch more video. So you can go to our playlist out on YouTube by going to YouTube and searching on ORACLOUD Plus Inc. Or you can go from our website to the tool we call FAST, the Fusion Application Support Tool, and you can access the full catalog of our Learn, Use, Configure, Integrate, Deploy, and Support videos online. So that's it for this tutorial. We hope you found it informative, and keep watching.